Hello, all of my anime lovers and all others. I hope that you all are doing well today, and I hope that you enjoy your holidays. In today's video, we're going to be discussing an anime called Rewrite. Now, in this anime called Rewrite, this world is split within two factions. There's one faction that are based upon summoners, and then the other faction is based upon magic users or so forth. There are citizens that do not use powers. However, our protagonist does have powers, and the powers that he has differentiates himself from others. Now, this protagonist is like a rebellious teenager. Going on through his life, he goes on to learn more about his power, and he will go into the woods at times to discover things about his power, learn new techniques, and so forth, and just to have fun. He would also go over there to fight monsters and gain experience. Now, during this process of him learning more about his powers, he also gains friends, some that have powers, some that don't, some that don't have no idea about any of that kind of thing. While this young man is learning more about his power, another young lady eventually shows up. Now, when this young lady shows up, she actually shows up without memory. It would be more accurate to state that this young lady is more like a newborn. She doesn't have memories, and she doesn't really have common sense either. But later on in the anime, she actually plays a significant role. And as time progresses, something interesting happens to the world of which our protagonist lives in. After the incident takes place, the protagonist gains the knowledge of parallel worlds. And while he's doing that, he also finds out who the greatest villain of that world is. Now, once he learns this information, he makes it his mission to do two things. One is to save the love of his life, and the other is to save the world along with his friends. Now, the anime also goes into a little bit detail and explains the different kind of lives that the young man lived, and it also shows the development of the powers. But now I'm going to go ahead and break down 5 things that I thought about this particular anime. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. To begin the plot, I'm going to start speaking about the young man's powers. His powers were unique in that they affected his life force from the very beginning. So long as he used his powers, it would also use his life force. Now, when his powers evolved, there was always a risk associated with it, because there was a risk from the very beginning for him to use those powers. There was one for him to upgrade those powers further. Now, his relationship with the love of his life was also an interesting one. And the reason that I like this character is because from the very beginning, once he learned about his powers, he knew what his powers were doing to him. And he knew that in order to use his powers, he would have to sacrifice something every single time. But that did not stop him from continuing to use his powers to protect himself, his friends in the world, as well as his loved one. Additionally, what I thought was unique about the plot is that they kind of had an unspoken harm going. Now, in most animes that I've seen, the harm that the protagonist has is going to be a simultaneous one. That is one in which the multiple people, I'll say, that are pursuing the protagonist, they are each aware of each other's love interest in the protagonist, and they're all shooting their shot at the same time. However, with this particular anime, that's not how it goes. Now, each one of them may have had some love interest, but it wasn't as if everyone was shooting their shot at the same time. So I like that. I thought it was unique. My second point is discussing the main character's mental development. I felt that in this anime, they did very well with his mental development. They displayed key points of concern that caused changes to his character. They also showed what he was concerned about, and then it also showed choices that he was forced to make over and over and over. Now, we already know that he was ambitious because he was willing to sacrifice himself just to go out and have some fun. But the interesting part is that it didn't take much for him to make the decision to fight and put his life on the line for others. Because personally speaking, it's one thing to have fun and risk yourself for yourself, but it's a whole different scenario to risk yourself from someone else. My third point is involving the villain of this anime. I felt that the villain didn't really live up to any expectations. I don't know if they had a low bar, if they helped us set a low bar, but I felt like the reasoning for the villain being the villain was pretty vague. I don't believe that they gave much details behind the villain's backstory. I felt like they should have did that. I believe that they did it a little bit, but they didn't do it enough to identify why the villain felt the way that they did to the extent of which the villain did. Now, the villain's power was not really that big of a deal. Though the villain did have some power, it wasn't at a significant level. Even though it could cross time and space, that wasn't the highlight of the villain's abilities. The highlight would be the intellect of the villain's ability, which would be that the smartness that the villain had to be able to know what was going to happen in the future, what has happened in the past, and so forth. So the villain was good with that, but the thing that I didn't like much was the fact that the villain didn't have really a strong reason to be out to kill everybody in the world. I just don't believe that. So for villain, I have to take some points off because it was not convincing. Whenever I watch an anime or any kind of TV show, if there's going to be a villain, I feel like the villain should have a significant reason or a comparable reason to whatever the objective of the villain is. That's just my point on this. My fourth point of this anime review is going to be the artwork. I felt that the artwork was pretty good. It's not at the level of Kimetsu no Yaiba, but it is pretty good. Now, I've seen a lot of animes of which the artwork wasn't really good, but even if the picture did look good, sometimes the fight scenes were not up to par. This anime didn't do that. If it was out of a 1 to 10, I'd probably give the anime a 7 because the fight scenes were pretty decent. I did feel like it was lacking in some areas, but for the most part, the fight scenes were good. The colors were great in it, and the way that they transitioned from one scene to the other was also good. So I thought that the artwork was awesome. My fifth point for this anime is going to be the sound of the anime. Now, when I'm watching an anime, I expect for the anime to have sound or music that actually match the characters, what they're doing, and whatever the scene or scenario is at the time. Now, I've seen some animes where it does not match, particularly The Plunderer. I just felt like in that anime, they didn't do well. I felt like the music didn't match the kind of anime that it was. Now, there are some animes of which they have an old school vibe and that they can use some old school music with it, but I'm glad that they didn't do that to this anime because music to me makes a massive difference. You take Attack on Titan, for instance. Whenever they play that music on Attack on Titan, they play it at the right time, and it just creates a whole different atmosphere. Right, so in this particular anime, they did very well with that. The scenes of which there was action, they played the right songs, the right instrumentals, and the scenes in which they should have been calm, they did that as well. Additionally, the particular instruments, or not instruments, but the instrumentals that they were using, I felt that was great too. So overall, I felt like the sound was done well. In conclusion, I really enjoyed this anime. I did feel like it was a little thought-provoking, which is a good thing, because in today's times, I'm not really coming across a lot of animes that are thought-provoking. The last one that I saw that was thought-provoking was Tokyo Revengers. Other than that, it's been a little while. The artwork was good, the plot was good and unique. The villain did not live up to expectations, and I feel like they could work on that just a little bit to make that better. Explain a little bit better for the background. and give us a little bit more insight as to why the villain has such strong hate and why it can cross dimensions like that. Other than that, they did very well with the sound as well. I thank you for watching this video, and I hope that you liked it. And if so, go ahead and like and subscribe, and make sure to hit that notification bell so that you know when the next one's going to be released. I want to say thank you to all of my subscribers, and I also want to say thank you to those who have watched the video. You all be safe, and until next time.